Okay, we are back with some quick math, right? So we are dealing with financial math, and this video is directed to our grade 10s. Okay, financial math grade 10 level. This video is just going to serve as an overview of the things that you'll see within the chapter. And then maybe in the next video, if we get another video with regards to this content, I'll do examples and how you'll see the questions and certain manipulations you'll be expected to do, but it's going to be fine. For this video, it's just an overview telling us what we will see in this chapter of financial math. Okay, so there's going to be two formulas that you're mainly going to see. The first one is going to be A is equal to P, open bracket 1 plus I, and we're going to multiply this I with an N, close this bracket. And the other formula is going to be very similar. A is equal to P, open bracket 1 plus I, and this time our N is going to go over here as an exponent, right? So these two formulas, you should know them off by heart. Make sure you know when to use which one, okay? Because for everything that you're going to do, if you get the formula wrong, you lose all your marks. It doesn't matter what comes next. If the formula is wrong, everything else is wrong. So when do I use this one on top here? Okay, this one I'm going to use when I do simple interest. Simple interest. And we're going to talk about the difference maybe between simple and compound interest. We'll do compound interest as well, right? This one, as I've just mentioned, is going to be for compound interest. Compound interest. We'll talk about the difference between these two in a second. Okay, first one on top over there, simple interest. The bottom one, compound interest. The first one, the top one again, you also use this. So we use it for simple interest, but you also use this for hire purchase, HIRE, hire purchase. So whenever you deal with simple interest or hire purchase, this is your go-to. This is the formula that you use. When you deal with compound interest or you deal with inflation, then you use this second formula. Okay, so that's the first thing that we can understand. Simple interest, hire purchase, you use the top formula. Compound interest, inflation, you use the bottom formula. Okay, and I think in this video I'll make an example of what the difference between simple interest and compound interest is and how that growth looks. But let's talk about some of these values. We have a in them, we have a P, we have a I, we have a N. What are all of these things? Let's start with A. All right, so in this formula, when you see A stands for our accumulated. Right, I'm not going to write the full word out there, but A is accumulated amount. Accumulate means to add together, to put things together, right? So your accumulated amount is always when things get together. That's what A is going to be. We can also think of this A value as maybe a final amount. Okay, a final amount, an accumulated amount. Okay, I don't know if there's any other synonyms that we'll think of as we go along, but fine, that's what A is. P is, let's call it our principal value, right? Principal amount. Okay, or you can think of this as your initial amount, um, initial, or maybe starting value, start amount, initial amount, principal amount, right? P for principal or primary. Anyway, that's the starting value. Let's think about it as that. I is our interest rate. Okay, interest rate. But now when we use the I value, I is your not the percentage form, I is your decimal form, right? So for example, if you have 10%, your I is not a 10, right? Your I is your 10 divided by 100. It's the decimal form. So let's just write your decimal form. And then we have a N over there. And for us, N is our time period. And our time period in years, right? So make sure we understand these formulas. What A is, what P is, what I is, what N is, and know how to use them. Okay, so I think in our next video we'll maybe get to use it. But A, that is your final amount. That's how much your money grows to. P, that's how much you put in initially. So maybe even our invested, if it's an investment, then this is our invested amount. If it is a loan, this is our borrowed amount. Okay, it depends on what the question is, but this is the starting amount. I is your interest rate in a decimal form, and N is your years. Okay, I think we're gonna cut it for now just here. In the next video, we will talk about how these formulas work. Maybe I should just mention this quickly. So I normally break this down for my learners and I show them how growth happens each year. But I'm just going to make a comment now to explain to you the main difference between these two formulas, okay? For simple interest, the amount of growth is constant. What does that mean? That means every year you add the same amount, okay? So for example, you might start out with a value of like maybe 10 or 100 rand, and if you add 10%, then you would add 10 rand every year. So the next year you would have 110, next year you would have 120, next year 130, and so on. The growth is constant. So this is a straight line. It's a linear growth or your simple interest. Okay, that's how that grows. Every year you add the same amount. What do you add? You add your interest rate, your 10% maybe of your initial, your primary amount. Okay, when we look at our compound growth, compound interest, right? If you also talk about your 100 rand maybe that you start out with, right? The first year looks the same. You're still gonna have 110 rand, but the second year you're not gonna add a 10 rand again. What you add is 10% of what currently is there. So the end of the first year, you have 110 rand, you add 11 rand, okay, instead of the 10 rand which was added the previous year. And then after that, you're going to add 12 comma something. Anyway, the point is the growth for this is not linear. The growth for this is exponential, and it looks something like that. I know my picture's a bit ugly, but that's what it does. Okay, so the compound interest, it grows dependent on what is currently there. The simple interest grows at a linear rate, the same rate every single year. It grows depending on what the primary value was. Compound interest grows dependent on what was there when interest was calculated. Okay, so that's the main difference. We're going to cut it here. In the next video, I will do some examples of these two, but this is the bare minimum. This is the basic form. Make sure you know it. Make sure you understand what all of those values mean.